You think speed reading is a scam? You're half right. Navy SEAL and intelligence analysts aren't moving their eyes faster. They're restructuring how their brain sees patterns. And you've been doing the opposite your entire life. Most people think reading faster means moving your eyes faster across the page. Wrong. Your eyes already move at roughly the same speed as anyone else. What separates an expert surgeon reading an MRI from you skimming a textbook isn't eye movement. It's how much information their brain chunks into a single glance. George Miller proved this in 1956. Your working memory holds about 7 chunks of information. The idiot sees 7 letters. The expert sees 7 concepts. Same capacity. Different operating system. Chapter 1. Average readers increase speed by skipping words. Elite readers increase speed by upgrading chunks. You probably tried speed reading once. Maybe you downloaded an app. Maybe you watched words flash on a screen one at a time. You felt faster. Then you remembered nothing. Here's why. Speed reading programs treat your brain like a hard drive with a faster transfer rate, but your brain isn't a hard drive. It's a prediction machine that needs context to encode anything permanently. When you force your eyes to skip and skim, you're not reading faster. You're just seeing words without building memory structures. Roediger and Karpicke published research showing that reading speed without retrieval practice produces almost 0 long-term retention. You're optimizing for the wrong metric. What do actual fast learners do instead? They build schemas first. A schema is a preloaded mental framework. Chess grandmasters don't see individual pieces faster than you. Herbert Simon and William Chase proved in their 1973 study that grandmasters recognize configurations, patterns, chunks of 4 or 5 pieces that represent a single strategic idea. When a grandmaster glances at a board, they're not processing 32 pieces. They're processing 5 or 6 meaningful patterns. That's why they can play 20 games blindfolded while you struggle to remember where your knight was. Same principle applies to reading. A first-year medical student reads a case study and sees 1,000 disconnected symptoms. An experienced doctor sees 2 or 3 syndrome patterns. The doctor reads faster not because their eyes move faster, but because each glance pulls in a bigger chunk of compressed meaning. You want that advantage. You need to stop reading faster and start seeing bigger. Chapter 2. Average people reread to understand. Elite performers preload schemas so they only read once. You've done this 100 times. You finish a page and realize you retained nothing, so you go back. Read it again. Maybe a 3rd time. Feels productive. It's not. Rereading without a schema is like pouring water into a leaky bucket. The information has nowhere to stick. You're hoping repetition will force comprehension. It won't. Cal Newport writes about this in Deep Work. Students who reread highlights perform worse than students who build conceptual frameworks before they ever open the book. The framework is everything. Before an expert reads a new paper in their field, they already have a mental scaffold. They know the 5 main theories. They know the 3 common research methods. They know the 2 big debates. When they read, new information snaps into pre-existing slots. 1 pass, full retention. You're reading the same paper with 0 scaffold. Every sentence is a loose brick with nowhere to go, so you reread and forget again. Hit subscribe before you forget. We fix leaky brains here. Here's what you do instead. Spend 5 minutes before you read anything building a skeleton. What are the 3 big ideas this topic usually covers? What's the standard framework everyone uses? If you don't know, find a summary. Read the conclusion first. Skim the headers. You're not cheating. You're building a schema. Once you have that framework, your first read-through becomes your only read-through. Information flows into pre-labeled boxes, and those boxes are what your memory actually holds onto. Chapter 3. Average readers subvocalize every word. Elite readers chunk phrases into single conceptual units. Right now, as you listen to this, imagine reading it as text. You probably hear a little voice in your head pronouncing each word. That's subvocalization. Most reading teachers told you to eliminate it. They were half wrong. Subvocalization isn't the enemy. Subvocalizing small chunks is the enemy. George Miller's chunking research applies here perfectly. Your working memory doesn't care if a chunk is 1 letter or 1 concept. It just holds about 7 chunks. Bad readers chunk at the word level. 1 word equals 1 chunk. Good readers chunk at the phrase level. 3 to 5 words become 1 chunk. Expert readers chunk at the concept level. An entire sentence becomes a single idea. Same working memory. Exponentially more information per glance. Look at how Anders Ericsson described expert musicians reading sheet music. Beginners read 1 note at a time. Intermediates read measures. Experts read phrases and recognize them as named patterns they've seen 100 times. A 12-note sequence isn't 12 pieces of information. It's one chunk labeled something like descending minor arpeggio. They process it as a single unit, then move on. You can train this with reading. Stop trying to silence the voice in your head. Train it to speak in larger units. When you read, practice grouping phrases. Don't read the words. Read the idea. Your eyes will still hit every word, but your brain will start compressing them into concept chunks instead of word chunks. This is the actual mechanism behind what people call speed reading. It's not speed, it's compression. Chapter 4. Average people treat every sentence equally. Elite readers identify load-bearing information and skip the rest without guilt. You think skipping is lazy. Wrong. Skipping the right things is expert-level filtering. Most nonfiction is padded. Anecdotes, transitions, rephrased claims you already understood. The average reader treats every sentence like it might be important. The expert knows that in most books, about 20% of the sentences carry 80% of the insight. Their job isn't to read everything. It's to identify and extract the 20%. Joshua Foer talks about this in Moonwalking with Einstein. Memory champions don't memorize everything they see. They aggressively filter for structure. What's the pattern? What's the rule? What's the exception? Everything else gets discarded in real time. They're not skimming randomly. They're skimming strategically. They know what they're looking for because they preloaded a schema in step 1. Here's your tactical upgrade. Before you read a chapter, write down one specific question you need that chapter to answer. Just one. Now read with a filter. Your job is to find the answer and the 2 or 3 supporting details. Everything else is set dressing. You'll move 3 times faster and retain twice as much because you're not trying to boil the ocean. You're extracting signal from noise. That's what intelligence actually is. Chapter 5. Average people highlight while reading. Elite people retrieve after reading. You love your highlighter. Yellow marker in hand, you swipe every sentence that sounds important, feels like learning. It's not. Highlighting is a delay tactic. It lets you pretend you're doing something without actually forcing your brain to retrieve or reconstruct anything. Roediger and Karpicke ran the definitive study on this. Students who highlighted and reread scored worse on long-term tests than students who read once and then tested themselves immediately after. Why? Because your brain only builds strong memory when it has to work. Highlighting is passive. Retrieval is active. When you finish a page and close the book and try to summarize what you just read in your own words, your brain has to rebuild the idea from scratch. That reconstruction is what writes the memory. Every time you retrieve, you're re-encoding at a deeper level. This is why spaced repetition tools like Anki dominate medical schools and language learning. They force retrieval. The best readers don't mark up their books. They read a section, close it, and then write 3 bullet points summarizing the core idea. No peeking. If they can't do it, they didn't understand it, so they go back. But now they're going back with a specific gap to fill, not a vague sense of confusion. That's efficient. Chapter 6. Average learners separate reading from application. Elite learners read with a project in mind. You read books to finish them. That's the problem right there. Finishing is a pointless goal. You want to feel accomplished, so you plow through page after page, retain almost nothing, and add another book to your Goodreads list. Congratulations. You're well-read and ignorant. Elite learners never read without a project. Cal Newport calls this project-based learning. Before they pick up a book, they've already defined what they're trying to build or solve. A programmer doesn't read a book on algorithms to finish the book. They read it to solve one specific bottleneck in the code they're writing today. A writer doesn't read story structure theory for fun. They read it to fix the second act they're stuck on. The project creates a schema. The schema focuses attention. Attention drives encoding. Encoding builds memory. This is why you remember almost nothing from school, but everything from that one obsessive hobby you taught yourself. The hobby had a project. School had a test. Projects create need. Need creates focus. Focus creates chunks. You want to read faster and remember more. Stop reading books. Start solving problems that require you to extract specific knowledge from books. Your brain will automatically highlight what matters, chunk what's useful, and discard what's filler. But here's the problem, though. All of this assumes you can actually focus long enough to read in the first place, and if you're like most people, you can't sit still for 10 minutes without checking your phone. Your attention span is cooked. That's why I made the video breaking down the exact deep work protocol that builds focus from zero.